Um,
early, and people have to work. I
yeah,
would leave directly from class and head to work. So,
yep,
yep.
yep, for sure. Um, yeah, I didn't want to have to teach the class in the morning, as I know that most of the instructors teach at night, but this is pretty much the only time I'm available is in the daytime because my husband works at night. But anyway, it's time to get started. So welcome to week 1 of CE225, which is entrepreneurship. And I am Chef Jeannie Stevenson. I'll be your instructor this term. We got 6 weeks together. Not really, we kind of have 5 weeks together, but we don't have an evaluator this term, so it's just me. I'm going to be making sure you're all on mute. Unless you want to speak, you can unmute yourself. If you have questions, please feel free to just shout them out, like completely, like jump in, because sometimes it's hard for me to like look in the chat room and everything while I'm talking and like look at the little raised hand icon. So I would love for this to be more of a discussion than just me talking at you. So feel free to join in. I would love to hear from you more instead of hearing from you less. Anna, your screen is hilarious. It's completely black except for 2 little white dots right here. It's kind of scary.
It's my glasses.
Yeah, I know. It's funny though. So anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I think most of you are in my 201 class, but there's a handful of people in this class who are not. So I'm just going to kind of introduce myself and what I'm about. I am 38. I'm a mother of 2. I have a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. I live in North Carolina. I've been a chef since 2003, and I've been teaching for about 7 years, coming up on 7 years in 2020. And I specialize in high volume baking, catering, pastries, wedding cakes, gum paste flowers, and plated desserts. I don't do a lot of restaurant work. I'm not like a line chef. I'm more of a bakery, commissary, hotel type of chef. I have worked in a large hotel type of establishments and catering companies and big production style bakeries. That's pretty much what I do. I'm not a restaurant person, but and before I started cooking, I was working on a ranch in Summit County, Colorado, where I would lead horseback trail rides in the summertime and drive the sleighs in the winter. Cowgirl, that was me. I love to run in the warm weather and paint and do crafts. I'm a cat person.
I was gonna give it to her.
And
because when I went over there, she wasn't there.
hello.
What did she say?
Mute, mute, mute. Can everybody make sure they're muted?
You want it?
Yeah, I want in. So that's just a little bit about me. I like things that are glittery and sparkly too. Now, being that we're talking about entrepreneurship this 6 weeks, I wanted to mention that I was this close to having my own bakery a couple years ago, and I'm going to tell you all about it and what happened, how that fell through. I get a little bit, when I talk about it, but because everybody has a dream, and sometimes when that dream is like within reach and then somebody pulls it away from you, it's pretty sad. Has anybody ever owned a business or been super close to or getting ready to?
We do right now.
You do?
Yes, my husband and I own a flooring company.
Is that your dream?
No, bakery.
Yeah, flooring's a little bit different than baking. How long have you been in that business?
About 13 years now.
And you're pretty successful at it, I take it?
Yes.
Cool. Well, that's good. And you want to start a bakery?
I do a small bakery / cafe. I've actually got my eye on a piece of property right now, so we'll see what happens.
Good. That's very good. Anybody else want to own a bakery or a restaurant or a cupcake truck or something?
I want to open a bakery / cafe one day.
Bakery cafe.
I got a name for it: Moonstone Cafe and Bakery.
Cool. Now, what makes it a cafe?
Well, because we'll be serving coffee, frappuccinos, hot chocolate, iced coffee. I want to use the cafe to pick up where the bakery doesn't,
I
And
would. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There's a lot of people who are on the run, if you know what I mean, and they need their coffee and like a Danish or a croissant,
Yeah. I was going to say I would workshop that idea because I think a lot of times people think of the word cafe as like a place where they can get actual food. Like they might hear of bakery cafe as some place where they might go to get a cupcake, an eclair, or a sandwich. So that's something that you might have to look at in your area and kind of like interview people. Like when you hear the term bakery cafe, what comes to your mind? The last thing you want to do is disappoint people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know in my area when I was trying to work on my business, that was kind of an obstacle that we were overcoming, was that everybody wanted to have like, oh, a sandwich shop. We want you to not only bake artisan breads, but then we want you to turn around and start putting meat on things. And that got us into trouble because when you start serving proteins, there's a whole other realm of regulations that you have to abide by, and we can talk more about that later too, but that's something to keep in mind. Like it's when you put those types of names in your business name, and it makes people envision something else, and you might kind of like upset them or disappoint them when you don't serve what they're envisioning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anyone? No. So let's take a look at the class page, and we can kind of go over a few things on the class page. I'm going to screen share with you. All right, so I'm going to switch to student view so it looks like what you see when you look at the class page. Our live sessions are always going to be Thursdays at 9 a.m. except for on Thanksgiving break. Thanksgiving Day is actually a Thursday, so I mean, I didn't mind hosting a live session that day, but I know a lot of people might be traveling or doing something with their families and stuff. You don't want to hang out with me in the morning on Thursday. So we're going to switch our live session that week to Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, November 27th at 9 a.m. Central Time. So just remember that we're going to have Wednesday live session the day before Thanksgiving. I will also, yeah, go ahead.
Will that interfere with our class in 201?
It's pretty much going to be the same situation in 201, except we have our live sessions on Wednesday anyway. So I don't think it's going to interfere because in 201 we have I have a class at 10:30, the 1911 class, and then I have a class at noon, which I believe is your class.
Yeah.
The 1910 class. So that won't interfere unless it interferes with your schedule if you can't be available at 9 o'clock that day. But we should talk from 9 to 10, and then you'll have 2 hours before our 201 class starts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Or instead of doing this in like 6 weeks, we could just do it all in one day. Like we could do it all right now, if anybody wants to do that.
No, I can't read that many chapters.
Okay. We'll make it an all-nighter. Anyway, so Thanksgiving break, just remember that. And I'm not going to be available on those dates through the class page. But you could not email me, you could text me if you want to. My text number, I'll put it right here in the chat in case you don't have it, but it's also on the class page. It's 504-612-2301. So you can text me during that time. I don't care. I'll respond to you if you have questions about something. So you don't have any assignments in this class, really. You just have knowledge checks, which is cool because I know you're busy in all your other classes, so you don't have any actual work to do except for these quizzes. But as usual, they're all going to be due on Tuesday nights at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, and then you've got 2 discussion forums in this class. And as always, the initial post will be due on Saturday, and then your replies will be due on Tuesday. So there's a syllabus right here if you want to look at it. Here is your full textbook. Each week they show you the chapters that you're supposed to read, but if you just want to open the whole thing, it's right here. And this textbook, I don't know if anybody's cracked it open yet, but I know it's really wordy, like it's super long. Your chapters are like 30 pages long, but it's very anecdotal. If you've read through it, most of it is storytelling, which is kind of good and kind of bad because the actual information is like hidden within those stories. But the stories are great because entrepreneurship, there's not one way to go about starting a business. It's all about kind of trial and error and kind of seeing what other people did. You want to review other people's successes and other people's failures. So that's one of the reasons why this book is so lengthy, is because it's going to tell you a ton of stories about different businesses over history that have not only succeeded but also failed. So I know the reading is kind of a pain, but even if you want to skim through it, it's better than not doing it at all. And you definitely want to do the reading before you do your knowledge checks. And then you also have your class cafe here, and it would be best if you guys use that just to talk to each other. If you have questions specifically for me, you can contact me directly. I might jump in here every now and then, maybe a couple days a week, but I'm not going to be like checking it on a regular basis for questions. So just best for you guys to use that to talk to each other if you want to. If you need tutoring in this class, this is the information right here, Sydney Wilson. She can help you out too if there's something that I can't help you with. Week 1, that's today, we will be talking just kind of an overview of entrepreneurship and starting to talk about the organization, the process behind starting a business. And in Week 1, you have an entrepreneurship self-analysis, which is kind of like a knowledge check, except there's no right or wrong answers. It's just it's almost like a survey, but we still want you to do it. You're gonna get credit in the grade book for completing it, but it's not like you have to study for it or anything. It's just more of like a survey, kind of to get you thinking about your business planning. And here is a entrepreneurship test that's online. If you did the reading in chapter 2, there was one footnote which had a web page in it which talked about almost an analysis that you could find on a web page. I'm going to click on it for you. It's kind of it's called psychometric test, and you can just fill out your information in here and it'll give you some feedback about if you're ready or not to be an entrepreneur. But you don't have to do that. That was just something extra that I added there. Just for fun, not required. We do not have a discussion this week, but you do have a knowledge check, regular knowledge check. Make sure you do your reading before you complete the knowledge check. You do have a discussion in week 2, and let's talk about that. Your initial post is going to be 5 to 7 sentences in length, and this is the information that you're going to cover. So getting 5 to 7 sentences should be no problem when you're describing this information. Just make sure you write full sentences, not just like 2-word answers. And then you've got 2 peer responses, so you need to reply to 2 classmates. Please write 3 to 4 sentences for your replies. Just agreeing with someone or disagreeing with someone is not allowed, and you will not receive points for that. So you need to be, just like I said in 201, you need to be thorough and thoughtful in your responses. You can give constructive criticism, your own ideas. It's a discussion, so just keep it that way. But that discussion is going to be about kind of outlining your business. What's it called? Where is it? What are you going to be serving? When are you going to be opening? Answer all these questions, and you can go above and beyond that if you want to. You can give us more information if you like. After that, on week 3. Week 3, we're going to be talking about your team that you're going to build, your business partners, your employees. You're going to start creating a business plan there. We're going to talk about labor cost, all the laws and regulations behind opening a business. There's no discussion that week. There's no discussion in week 4, where we're going to be talking about finances and budgeting. Week 5 is we're going to be talking more about finances and how to raise money for your business. And there is a discussion in week 5. So you've got the discussion in week 2 and week 5, and that is your pitch. Now the pitch is basically what you're going to say to like an investor or a loan officer in order for them to give you the money, the loan that you need to start your business. How are you going to pitch that idea to somebody? So you would want to include your concept summary from the week 2 discussion, just copy and paste it in there. And then you're going to go through and answer these questions in your initial reply, which is your pitch. And then you're going to reply, as usual, to 2 classmates. So those are the discussions. And then weeks 5 and 6 are combined. And the reason why we're combining them in this class is just basically to give you time to do your other coursework for your baking class, because you're going to be really busy with that. So we don't want to inundate you with all kinds of extra work from this class. But we're only going to have one discussion that's going to be combined weeks 5 and 6, and that'll be on Wednesday, December 12th. And that's, you know, the same week as your discussion. Then you have a knowledge check, and that's pretty much it. Okay. After that, you have some extra credit options. Can't click on that. I'm going to switch modes so you can see my screen here. Extra credit options are the end of course survey as usual, and that's hidden right now because the survey is not available yet. And then the other one is to create a business plan. So you're going to create a full business plan, and I'm going to give you all the tools to do that with, and we're also going to discuss that before this time comes. But basically, you're going to create a full business plan. You can use templates, you can use business plan wizards, whatever you want to do. You just want to make a business plan, and I've got all kinds of information right here on that. But we can talk more about that in the weeks to come. Okay. Any questions about anything I just said, the class page or anything else? Somebody loves me. You love me? I love you too. Yeah, I try to give a lot of information. I mean, that's what we're here for, to convey information in a constructive way. So I hope you like that. I forgot one thing. This is my contact information right here in case anybody doesn't have it, but we're obligated to point that out to you. So what else? Should we just be done for the day? No, we've got too much to talk about.
Didn't think it could be that easy.
No, I mean, this is kind of an easy week except for the reading because we're just going to summarize kind of, but so we can get started. We can get started on that. Where are my notes? All right, so what do you think an entrepreneur is? Who can describe to me what exactly is an entrepreneur?
Someone who sells something?
Well, yes, but I mean, someone who sells something is more of like a salesperson. Like, what are you selling? Are you selling something that somebody else owns, or are you selling something that you own? That's the.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I believe an entrepreneur, excuse me, it's early in the morning over here. An entrepreneur is someone who goes and starts like a small business and starts to like advertise their wares and slowly builds up into something bigger.
Right. It could be a small business that they're starting. It could even be a large business that they're starting. I know that I've heard some situations where a startup, it costs millions of dollars and they just jump right into, like, for example, if you ever watch Shark Tank and you go on there and you see people asking for, $400,000 so that they can get their product manufactured, that's pretty big time. That's a big business. Obviously their startup was small, but you have to keep in mind that if you're selling something, especially if you're selling something nationwide, it's not going to be a small thing. You know, selling something nationwide, like if you're making cookies or something, cheesecakes, and you're shipping them across the country, you've got to be ready for big time business. And if you're not, chances are you're going to go under because you're not going to have enough income to support the business that you started. So that's something to keep in mind when you start employing yourself, is thinking about the magnitude of, is it going to be a large thing? Is it going to be a small thing? Is it going to be local? Is it going to be statewide, nationwide? Anybody thinking about opening a bakery or a restaurant where you ship products to some place? I know people ask me all the time if I ship my cakes, and I'm like, I make wedding cakes. I don't know. I mean, how do you ship a wedding cake? I don't even want to know how you ship a wedding cake, honestly. That's not what I do.
I don't plan on doing that, but I've worked somewhere where we actually ship stuff all over the country.
The reason why I didn't want to get into that is because you can't control what the post office does, you know? Like in my own establishment, I can control how I make it, how I package it, how I give it to people. And then after that time, it's kind of up to them what they do with it. But once you hand it over to like the UPS or whatever, the post office, I have no idea. And I take a lot of pride in the products that I make, and I don't want to give them to a middleman, because I don't think that they would turn out the same. You know, if somebody is expecting it to be one way and they get it another way, then all of a sudden they go on Yelp and they start tearing up your business. So that's why I don't want to ship anything anywhere. But
Yeah, and we shipped macarons, so those are very delicate. So I always was afraid like it's gonna break, or like even though they're like tightly packed and everything, it still is in my head like these things are gonna break.
yeah, definitely, especially with their fillings, they could melt, they could get smashed. So many things that could go wrong with that. But obviously a lot of businesses ship, so you know, maybe I'm wrong. But I like my product to have a good quality when somebody receives it. So an entrepreneur is somebody who runs a business, who opens and runs a business. What is an intrapreneur? Intrapreneur. Have you heard of that term, or you want to take a stab at it? Nobody? Intrapreneur is somebody who works for an entrepreneur, but who treats the business and works as if they own the place. If you've ever worked in a place and you're like the best manager there, and you really, really love your job and you treat it as if it's your own, you're marketing for them, you're coming up with ideas to expand on what they've already done. You're jumping into the deep end with this entrepreneur. The only thing that you don't have in there is financial investments, but everything else, like your heart's in it, you're helping them expand. That's also like, what about a franchise? A franchise is a business that you own, but is it a concept that you came up with? What do you think about that? Are you an entrepreneur if you're a franchise owner, or are you an intrapreneur?
I believe. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I believe it's being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, you might want to think of yourself as an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur is somebody who actually starts the business from the ground up. They come up with the concept, they come up with the plan, they go through the steps to get it created, they devise all the policies and procedures, and then they hand it off to somebody else who is putting their financial investment in it, but they're not the ones who created it. They're just the ones who take it and kind of run with it. So you're right, that would be an intrapreneur.
Well, franchise, you pay, basically you're paying for their name, but
Right.
you have to go by their rules. You can't actually somewhat go out on your own and have your own products with it. You have to follow their set of
Right.
rules, basically.
That's exactly right. And sometimes it can be frustrating. I was looking at a franchise opportunity here in North Carolina that was called Flower Power Kids Cooking Studio. I took my son to a birthday party there, and it's basically like the kids get to cook. They've got a teacher who, you know, they do 3 or 4 recipes, usually I think like 3. Macaroni and cheese they make from scratch, and some sort of entree, and then they make a little cake for dessert. And the kids, you know, it's all like, it's kind of like a professional, like almost like a culinary school, except it's designed for kids. The decoration is all for children and everything. And I was like, I can do this. I love kids. I love teaching. I'm really good at baking and cooking. Like, I know what I'm doing. And this could be something I would be really interested in doing. The only problem was they don't allow you to actually use the facility for anything else. So like my cake business that I have from home, where people order cakes from me, I make them and I sell them to people. I could not do that using that establishment. And the money that went into starting that franchise was like $80,000 to $150,000, depending on the square footage. And I just told the lady, I said, I want to be completely honest with you. I'm not into throwing that much money into a kitchen that I can't actually use for anything other than making some mac and cheese. So I had the meeting with her. I filled out all the paperwork. We really got into it. We were talking about locations in Greensboro, where I was living at the time. And then I was like, maybe I'm going to ask her this question. Can I, like, when we're not having parties here and serving the kids and doing the whole thing, can I use it for other avenues? Nope. That was a hard no. And I said a hard goodbye to that. Not interested in having a kitchen that I can't use. But yeah, entrepreneur is, you know, somebody that runs a franchise. So that's good. I'm going to show a little slideshow while we're talking here, if you don't mind. Present. All right, so we already talked about what is an entrepreneur: someone who perceives an opportunity, creates an organization to pursue that opportunity, and they do all the legwork, just like we just said. They do all the legwork in creating the business. It's not somebody who comes in later. They do their market research. They research government policies. They think about the backbone of the establishment that they're trying to open, like kind of like the bones of it, the funding and finances, all of this stuff. They educate themselves, much like you're doing now, in order to know how, to go about opening that business. That's what an entrepreneur does. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, I want to open up a restaurant or I want to open up a bakery. Here's the steps of becoming an entrepreneur. You've got to understand like the financial reality of it. Who knows what working capital is? Does anybody know what that term means, working capital? No. Can you guys make sure that you're all muted? Because I'm hearing a lot of background noise.
How much money you have to work with?
How much money you have to work with after the business is started. So like, let's say your bakery was going to cost you $200,000 to open. That's what it costs to open, but working capital would be how much money you have to work with once it's open. So, and they say that it should be 6 months. You should have 6 months of working capital to pay all the bills, pay the light bill, the electric bill, the gas bill, the water, pay the guy who delivers your linens, the guy who comes to put the smell good spray in the bathroom, the whole 9 yards, all your overhead, in addition to the salaries for your employees and the salaries for yourself and your food. They want you to have 6 months worth of that money so that you can operate in case you're not making a profit to start. And that's probably the hardest part about starting the business is figuring out if you have enough money for working capital, because there's no right answer to, oh, we're going to need this much. Basically, you're going to need a lot of money for 6 months. And I know that was a pitfall that was running into my business plan. It's like, okay, we're going to invest $150,000 into opening up this shop, but then we're doing the math, and I was like, we're going to need like $80,000 to $90,000 just for working capital, unless I don't take a salary. And that was something else that I was thinking about, like, can I live for 6 months without being paid? And then I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, well, you know, we could live off of my salary. And I mean, that's all part of the beginning of opening a business, is usually working with not a lot of money coming in. So that you have to understand the financial reality of starting a business. Identify key contacts in their networks. So who do you suppose is in your network right now? Let's say you were to start a business next week. What kind of network do you already have? Or do you have a network?
I work with a catering company that does weddings, which gives me a lot of ins if I choose to do weddings.
Yeah. So it can be people who you work with currently. What about this guy? Your chef instructors. Yeah. I'm part of your network. How about your classmates?
Yep.
You might not realize that, you know, you have 90 classmates. Some of them might be business owners. Somebody might own, you know, a wine store where you're going to partner. You could partner with them in your neighborhood. Maybe they're not in your neighborhood. Maybe you could get ideas for them on how to get a liquor license. You could even just ask people questions. It's all about knowing people, knowing the right people, keeping up good communication with these people, staying in contact, and knowing who can help you. And we can, you know, your staff instructors can definitely help you kind of troubleshoot and answer questions along the way. Your classmates can be of assistance, including people that you work with in the industry.
Chef,
Definitely.
there are 2 moms in my neighborhood. They actually bake too. Does that actually count?
Yeah, for sure, because you could say, let's say you're running your cake business from home, or even if you have, you know, a bakery somewhere. Let's just say you're all home bakers, cottage bakers, and you have way too many orders this week, but you don't want to say no. You don't want to say no to the customers because that kind of angers people. You could reach out to those people that you know who also bake, and you say, hey, can you take care of this cake for me? You know, I'll post on my page, I'll give you credit for it. So I'll give you a little bit of advertising.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we do. One of them makes like small things like cake pops and things like that, and the other one makes cakes and sugar cookies, and then they pass everything else over to me.
Yeah, that's a good partnership to have. And partnerships are really great, you know, especially if you're going to, you know, if you both serve different types of products. Let's say somebody owns a catering company that only does savory food, and then you own a bakery style catering business. And obviously you're not going to go into business together. You're not going to join your 2 businesses. But if you have clients who are like, oh, I need a cake and I also want a salad too, because we're going to have a little party, but we want a little something to munch on before the cake. You can, you know, go back and forth like that. Be like, hey, you know, I'm going to throw some business your way if you can help me out. Or maybe they, you know, somebody orders a savory menu from them, but they want desserts and they come to you for that. So that could be considered a good networking partnership as well. And the reason why we mention this is because it's a very good thing to not burn any bridges, especially, you know, you don't want to always make a first impression, especially with, you know, your classmates and your chef instructors. Make a good first impression, and don't ever write anybody off, because you never know how they can be valuable in the future. And not to say that we want to be those type of people who only use people for what they can do for us, but when you're a business owner, you really need to have a large network of people that you can rely on. For sure. But what else? let's see. Next slide. Visualizing your opportunity. This is really important to know because just because you want something doesn't mean it's a good idea. Just because you want to open your restaurant, maybe it's not the right time. Or maybe you're not as passionate about it as you thought. Like, can you honestly say to yourself, I can envision myself baking day in and day out for the next 40 years? And if the answer is yes, open a bakery. I mean, I could see myself going in at 4 o'clock in the morning and just baking and rolling in the dough, so to speak, for the rest of my life, because that's what I'm passionate about, as long as I've got some time on the side to do some jogging and some of my other interests, you know, but this is my passion. But sometimes people aren't really passionate about what they do. They just think they have a good idea. Like, oh, I invented this rolling pin that has a particular pattern on it. And then, you know, you're like, do you like making decorated cookies? Or do you like working with things that you roll that have patterns? I'm not passionate about that. I saw some online the other day that I was like, oh, that's cool, but do I want it just because I'm a baker? No. Think about things like that. Like, are you passionate about what you're trying to sell? Maybe pita pockets on the side of the road next to the sports stadium is a great idea and would be super successful, but are you going to be happy doing it? That's the question. Can anybody say right now that they don't want to open a restaurant or a bakery? Like, you wouldn't be happy doing that? You also have to think about the obstacles too. Like, when I was working on my business plan, I was thinking, do I want to spend 12 to 14 hours a day in the kitchen? And that's the reality of being a chef, is that you spend that much time, if not more, in a kitchen. Do I want to sacrifice the time away from my children? Do I have the family support that I need to be able to spend that much time at my establishment? The answers were all no there. Plus, I wanted to have another another baby, and that was not compatible with opening a bakery at that time. So even though it was my passion, the opportunity, it wasn't the right time. So in addition to thinking about your opportunity and your passion, you also have to think about the competition too. Like, are there other bakeries in your area? The answer is probably yes. Do they make what you're going to make? The answer is probably yes. How is your product going to be different than their product? Or how is your product going to be better than their product? Chances are it might not be. It might not be, or chances are the customers who are buying it don't care. You know, they want a cupcake for 75 cents. They don't want a cupcake for $3.25, no matter how good it is. So you gotta think about that too. Like, what is your competition? Are they direct competition, indirect competition?
Setting up another job number, but
And
it's for
how,
like a
you know, how is it that they are competing with you? And can you compete with them?
like a storytelling.
Jeff, there's a
type
lot of
thing.
background noise. I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure who's not muted.
So
I'm hearing that.
yeah, so I
Sorry, let me see if I
figure
can
out where it
find it.
would fall in there.
I think I got it. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. That's the thing that sucks about not having an evaluator.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so last on this slide, testing the market. What is a market test? That's probably a term that you've heard, but I find that not a lot of people actually know what that is. Is it as simple as going out and interviewing people, like standing in front of a grocery store and saying, hey, do you think we need a bakery here? Is it like that, or is it something else? Market test. Any guesses? Okay, I'll tell you. A market test is where you actually create your product, maybe on a smaller scale, depending on what it is, and you go out and you provide it to the community and see if they want to buy it. Maybe you set up a booth during the holidays I know where I came from in Greensboro recently, if you got a license from the city hall downtown, you could actually open up a booth in parking lots and sell product, as long as you were cooking from a licensed kitchen. Like if you had a licensed cottage bakery at your house or something, you could sell the product. Anyway, that would be a good market test for me. I could open up a booth somewhere in town, take my product, take my cookies and my cupcakes and my giant Rice Krispie treats and everything that I make, take it there and see if people want to buy it. Do they like it? Do they think it tastes good? Is it something they're interested in purchasing? Are they willing to pay the price that I want to charge for it? That is what a market test is. So you have to actually, you know, be able to create your products. It's different than just interviewing people and saying, you know, do you think this product would be good? Because most everybody's going to say yes. Like if you want a sandwich shop, do you think we need a sandwich shop here? Yes, I love sandwiches. I'm so hungry. I wish I would eat. But once you make the sandwiches and you start trying to sell them, that's where it comes down to, will you actually have a customer base? If that makes sense. Right. What's next? So you want to make sure that you actually have enough professional experience in order to be successful in your endeavor. I know that I don't mean to be like discourage you, but I've had so many students over the years who say, okay, I'm in culinary school now. I don't have any experience working in the industry besides cooking or baking from home or cooking for my family on holidays. Everybody says I'm the best baker in the world, but I have zero experience in the industry. That's not a good thing. And chances are you're not going to be successful in opening a restaurant or a bakery unless you hire someone like a manager or an assistant chef who actually knows what they're doing. Like for me, right now I'm closing in on 17 years in the industry. So I feel like I'm ready. I'm ready to open my own place. However, I don't have experience as an owner, and obviously you're not going to get experience as an owner unless you are an owner, but I feel that I'm at the right stage in my professional career that I would be ready. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Am I actually ready? Is it just something that I want to do or something that I can do because I know how? That's a really hard question for some people, because it's like, oh, I want this so bad. This is my dream. Do I really know how to do it? No, I've never worked in a bakery. I've never managed a bakery. I've never managed people in a food service environment. I know nothing about purchasing food supplies or, you know, vendors or working with vendors. This is very, very important to have at least some. I would recommend to all of you that after you finish your externship, that you work for at least a few years. I would say like 2 to 4 years minimum before you try opening your own place, just to make sure that you can make mistakes on other people's money. And not that you're trying to go into somebody else's business and make a whole bunch of mistakes, but I know from personal experience that I learn a lot more from my mistakes than I do from my successes. When I do something right, I just kind of move on from it. I'm proud of myself for a little while, but when I do something wrong, you know, it really eats at me, and I'm constantly thinking about how I can do it better next time and how I can improve myself. And that's something that you want to do on somebody else's time and somebody else's dollar. Okay. So I'm not really sure about this. This is kind of like developing your idea. I don't really like this slide that much, but because it's confusing. But this basically is describing that you want to make sure that you plan your business properly so that it's 100% descriptive and accurate of what you're envisioning, because you might explain it to somebody and they're envisioning one thing and the next person is envisioning something else, and then you have a business partner who thought that you meant this, and then you have a final product which turned out like that. So that's why the actual business plan that we're going to speak about in week 3, I think, that's where that comes in handy, is making like a roadmap, a black and white roadmap of where you want to go and what you want things to look like in the end. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about what we've discussed so far? Or anything that you don't like that I said? No? Okay, let's see. let's see where we are. All right, so what is an entrepreneur? All right, sorry, I just lost track of what I was doing. Okay, back to the slideshow. All right, so the planning stage. What do you think that you're doing right now in your education that could be considered planning for your potential business? Is there anything that you're doing right now, or maybe at home, that you could consider the planning stage of your business that you might have in the future? Any little tiny thing?
Yeah, was there facility layout tools that we made, the equipment lists and all that stuff that could all be applied towards opening a business? It can all be used. All of it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big part of the planning process, is thinking about the equipment that you want. But the first step with the equipment is actually thinking about the product you're going to serve. That's really important. I know that if I had my dream bakery, I might want to have a dough laminator, which is, you know, that machine that rolls out the dough so that you don't have to stand there with the rolling pin. But then I was thinking to myself, am I going to serve a lot of pies and a lot of laminated doughs like croissants and puff pastry? The answer was no. I'm not going to serve a lot of pies or breakfast pastries or things like that. So I don't need to spend $4,000 to $8,000 on the laminator. But it's good that you mentioned that, because that is part of the planning process. But what about recipes? What about when you're just making stuff? You know, your specialty product. Let's take like me, the thing that I love making the most is red velvet cupcakes. I won an award for them actually in Chicago in 2010. That's like my thing, is red velvet cupcakes. That is a big part of the, you know, the planning stages for my business, because I'm making this recipe. Does it work? You know, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? I'm going to make these red velvet cupcakes. Okay, that's my plan. I'm going to make them. I'm going to carry through with the plan and actually make them. I'm going to check on it. Does the product taste good? Is it pretty? Do people want to buy it? And then act on it. That's either going to be me attempting to sell it or revising the formula. Maybe it was too red, or people didn't like the red food coloring and they wanted me to use beet juice or beet puree to color it red. You know, that's just a small part of the planning stage, even before you have a business, but this is a good thing to think about, all the different aspects. You plan it, you do it, you check on how it turned out, and then you act on it, whether it's moving forward with that product or whatever it was you were doing, or changing it in a certain way. Okay. This right here is super important. The customer, your audience. You know, you might think that, you know, I have my bakery or my restaurant and we're going to sell to everybody. Everybody's our audience. You know, who doesn't like to go to a bakery? Can you think of somebody who doesn't like to go to a bakery? My bakery, I'm not serving gluten-free and vegan. It's an old-fashioned bakery. We use flour, we use sugar, we use food coloring. Who doesn't want to go there?
Celiacs and vegans.
Right. So, what? Yeah, sorry. Celiacs, vegans, people who are on special diets, like just to lose weight, people who are like super health conscious, they might not want to shop with me because my stuff is high in calories, it's high in carbs, it's high in fat. It's got food coloring. So if you've got kids who have ADHD and you think that food coloring contributes to their behavior problems, or you have autistic children or families who's autistic and they can't have certain types of food products because it kind of messes with them and makes them feel not as well as they should, those are people who are not going to shop at my establishment. So then I have to think of, who is my target audience? Who's my primary target audience? Secondary target audience are people who you might try to draw in later with maybe specialty products. Like I could make, in the future, I could make gluten-free and things that are celiac friendly. But that, of course, would require me having a whole separate like kitchen or separate room that didn't have any wheat products in it. Maybe I'm going to start using natural colors instead of regular food colorings. So I could I could advertise my products to those people who are not going to be my primary target audience. What does tertiary target audience mean? Tertiary, I know that's a weird word. Any guesses?
Wouldn't it be like the third or like the least?
Yeah, that would be, the people who are probably not going to shop very often. I think for my tertiary target audience would be people who might only shop on the holidays. They're only going to come to me on Easter because I serve a coconut cream cake. That's what they want. They're going to come to me one time a year because I serve this big coconut cream cake that's got a bunny head on top or something. That's the only thing they want. Or maybe they come on a Jewish holiday where I make things out of matzah crackers. Like I make a nice tart that is basically unleavened. The dough itself is unleavened because I make it with crushed up matzah crackers. Maybe they only want that. They want to come to me on Passover or Rosh Hashanah or something. Those are not the people that I'm going to advertise to all the time because they're just not my target audience. You want to think about who are the folks who are going to come to you. So let's say you have a hot dog stand outside of a sports arena. Who's your target audience? Meanwhile, there's nothing around the sports arena.
The people coming into the sports arena.
Right. You want to maybe go to a sporting goods store, or if you're going to advertise, you could advertise in like a shopping mall near where they sell, like the Dick's Sporting Goods, or the people who go to buy sporting equipment. You could advertise at children's games, like at the high school or the middle school where all the parents are going to the football games. If you have money to advertise on television, obviously you're going to advertise on stations that cater to sporting events. You're not going to go on like Nickelodeon and start talking about your hot dog stand outside of the sports stadium. Let's say there's no buildings, like business buildings around the sporting arena, but you're still standing out there. Are you going to be asking business people to travel a half a mile to walk over there to get a hot dog? No, but that might be your secondary target audience if maybe there's a park or something nearby where they like to have their lunch occasionally. Tertiary target audience, people who are just passing through. They're just passing through. They're tourists. They're just walking around. They may or may not pass by your hot dog stand. So think about that. Think about your goal and who you're actually going to sell your product to. And when you are thinking about that, you have to think about the demographics, the people's age, the gender. Now, for my business, age and gender is important because there's statistics that women shop more at bakeries than men do. They're out, they want to buy stuff for the dinner in the evening for their family, or maybe they're just out and about shopping and they want to go get a brownie or something, or they got kids with them, like they're toting their kids around all day, and the kids want to take a break and get some cupcakes and the mom wants to sit down to have some coffee. For my business, I was going to focus on women between the ages of like 25 and 45 who are maybe stay-at-home moms who've got nothing else going on in the day except taking care of kids in their household. Maybe they wanted to get out for a little while. My bakery was going to be child-friendly. I was going to have an area where the kids could sit down and decorate cookies and cupcakes, or maybe they could draw on paper and the mom could kind of relax by the fireplace with a cup of coffee. And then meanwhile, they could be looking at all the products I have and thinking about that for the future. When I need a cake, I'll come here. When I need a half a dozen eclairs, I'll come here. That was kind of my vision. So I wanted to focus on that age range and the ladies, even though of course I'm going to let everybody shop there and I'm going to try to advertise to everybody, but that was my target right there. How about household income? Does that play a big role in what your business model is going to be like? What do you think about that?
Because some people in some areas, they can't afford to pay $5 for a cookie.
No, they really can't. I'm going to give you an example of where I am right here. I asked the community if they thought they needed a bakery. I moved to a new location from last time when I was doing my business planning. And everybody says, yes, yes, we need a bakery. We don't have one here. This would be the perfect time to open a bakery because there's so many people moving here from all over the country. That would be a great business to have. My second question was, what is your price range? When you go in and shop there, how much are you going to pay for my cupcake? Pretty much everybody said, we don't want to pay more than $1.50. And I was like, so no, that's not what I do. I don't make boxed cake mix. I don't use buttercream from a bucket. And that's what you're going to get for $1.50. So maybe this is not the location where I want my bakery. The household income here is actually pretty high. It's between, I think I was looking at the statistics from a neighboring commercial property that's for rent. They have all the data there below the advertisement. They said the median income here was anywhere from 80,000 annually to 200,000 annually. That's like the average. So the people, they have a lot of disposable income, but the people also don't want to pay a lot of money for products, which is kind of weird to me. Although I do know that they just opened an ice cream shop nearby and you can't get out of there for less than $10. So I really feel like they could pay for my cupcake, but they just don't want to. Anyway, the income is very, very important. It's probably one of the most important things that you're going to be looking at when you're planning your business. Can the community you're in sustain your actual business? Family size is really good too. You know, you want to think about how many people are in the community, and when people come to shop with you, how many people are they going to be shopping for? Are you going to have singles coming in all the time? Is that going to be your target audience, or are you going to have people coming in to shop for a household of 4 or 5? So that's important. What people do for a living, their education level. Religion is not really like super important unless you're catering directly to, like, let's say for example, I was catering to people who eat kosher or halal, like the Muslim community. That's obviously I would target them because I would be providing food that they wanted to eat. I know that kosher is real big that where I come from in Chicago, so the religion would certainly be something that we were looking for when we were thinking about advertising to our target audience. Same thing with ethnicity and heritage, like we were talking about in weeks 5 through 8 in 201. I know we haven't gotten to some of that yet. International pastries. Can you sell things that people from other countries are familiar with and that they want to eat, or are we only creating like American food? So if you want to be a bakery that specializes in German style baked goods, that's awesome. It would be great if you lived in a community that there lived a lot of German people. So keep that in mind too. Like, am I going to make this product that I think is really great and it comes from a country that I'm familiar with, or maybe my family comes from there? Meanwhile, the community I live in doesn't have a lot of these people. Are they going to be interested in that? That's really important too. Does anybody have an idea that focuses on international cuisine or anything like that? No? Anybody making some hamantaschen or kolachkis? Everybody wants to make peach cobbler, I know. No? Okay. So anyway, we got the customer. Think a lot of things to think about with the customer: their social groups, their personality traits, what they value. This is important too, like especially nowadays with the political climate we live in. Maybe I'm super big on the LGBTQ, whatever it's called, and I want that to be kind of like an all-inclusive culture in my establishment, yet I live in the Bible Belt. Do you think that that would be a super compatible business to go right down here in the Bible Belt?
No.
No, probably not. Even though even though there are a lot of young people who are moving here, just like my family, you know, who are more tolerant to all-inclusive lifestyles, the culture in this section of the country, it's still deep ingrained in conservative values. So that would probably be something that I don't want to focus on so much in my business. But there's so many different ways you could go about your business culture and thinking about that. But whichever way you tend to go, you just have to think about if it's going to be compatible with where it is that your business will be located, if that makes sense. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? We didn't get all the way through the slideshow. There's one more thing that I want to mention before we conclude for today is the SWOT analysis. And this is super important. This stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is definitely a table that you should fill out for your own business even before you get into the planning process. Basically, you want to talk about what you're going to be good at and what you're not going to be good at. So if we're just thinking about products, for example, I know that I'm going to be really good at creating sweet pastries and cakes, but I'm not going to be really good at creating artisan style breads, and people might want that. So that could be a weakness that I'm just going to X out of my whole business plan, or it could be a weakness that I'm going to work on. Not that I'm not good at making bread, it's just not something I'm passionate about, so I don't really want to include that too much into my business plan. What about opportunities? This is where you list factors that represents the reason your business will prosper, which means what are things you could build on? You know, I have the opportunity, I have this location, and I have the opportunity to teach people as well. Not only can they come here to buy my product, but I'm an instructor. This is what I do. I could actually have people come in and I could offer classes in my establishment, classes on making pasta from scratch, cooking Thanksgiving dinner, decorating cupcakes, making a wedding cake. Those are opportunities that I could use in my business plan. And threats have to do with competition. What do you think? There's some other types of threats beyond competition that would make it difficult for you to succeed beyond the local competitors? Any ideas? Anna, you said I'm targeting you. I'm targeting you right now.
Shannon says local laws and regulations.
Local laws and regulations, that's true. I mean, it just depends on what you're planning to serve, I guess. But I mean, you can't open a business unless you're abiding by the laws and regulations. But let's say I want to serve edibles. You know what edibles are. I want to serve edibles. I come from Colorado. I'm going to put marijuana in my pastries. No, because it's not legal here. It isn't. It's not even legal medically, as far as I know. So yeah, local laws and regulations. What about other little things like construction? This area I live in is growing rapidly. Everywhere you look, they're knocking trees down, they're clearing fields, there's bulldozers everywhere. It sucks to drive around here, it really does. But that good that there's going to be more people moving here, so my business is going to have more and more customers, but bad in the short term because of the construction. Maybe they start tearing up the road. There's a 2-lane highway. They're making it 4 lanes. For the next 3 years, they're going to be working on this thing. That's bad. That's a threat. That's a bad threat. How about weather? Is weather a threat? Like if you live in Tornado Alley in Kansas.
Weather is a threat. We actually live in Tornado Alley here in Tulsa. We're not far from it. So it's like we kind of have to close down a lot of businesses when it comes down to tornado season. And by the weather being bipolar, you kind of don't know when tornado season is anymore for the past 5 years since I've moved here, because we've even had issues over like late October coming in November where we have to lock ourselves in the closet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's bad for your business because it can shut you down. I mean, even if your business building doesn't get destroyed or harmed from the storm, that could shut you down for a few days. Like I know in my town, when it snows here, like I said before we started, people lose their freaking minds when it snows. Half an inch, the whole city is shut down for like 5 days. I don't know if I can sustain that because in my business plan I've calculated that I need to make $1,200 a day in order to be successful, in order to pay all my bills, to pay my staff, to pay myself, and to continue moving on. Can I shut down for 5 days in the beginning of March at the drop of a hat? I don't know. I better have had a really successful holiday season. So those are things to think about. Like, do you have these threats and can you overcome them? I mean, we mentioned competition, we mentioned political climate, laws and regulations, weather we just spoke on. Are these things that are like big threats or little threats? And can you move past them? Are they long-term threats or short-term threats? Yes, a week for a half an inch of snow. Listen to this. I know it's time to leave, but if you have to leave, you can go, but I'm going to keep talking for a few minutes. Before I moved to North Carolina, I was interviewing for a job, which I got hired for over the phone, incidentally, because I'm that awesome. But I was unable to get a hold of the program director of the school I was going to be working for over a week. He wanted to have a phone interview with me. I think it was a Tuesday. That time came and went. Tuesday came and went. I could not get in touch with him. I didn't hear from him. And I was like, what is happening? This is so unprofessional. The whole community shut down for like 7 days. Power lines were out. Nobody was going to work. Nobody was driving anywhere. People's internet was knocked out here in North Carolina. And then when he finally got in touch with me, he's like, oh yeah, it snowed. I was like, what do you mean it snowed? Like, I looked at the Weather Channel and you didn't get a blizzard. You got like 1.5 inches of snow. It completely wiped out the whole city. And then once I moved here, I started to realize that it's true. It's legitimate. Once it snows here, schools are closed. You can't go to the grocery store. You better go to grocery shopping before like 2 or 3 days before the storm comes, because a day before the storm comes, you're not going to be able to find anything in the store. It's all wiped out. And then the day of the storm, it's closed, even if it's a half an inch of snow. That's craziness. But that's a huge threat. That would be a threat to my business because you never know when it's going to happen. You don't know how long you're going to be out of business for and how much money it's going to ultimately cost you. Yes, I'm in North Carolina. That's where I'm at.
They act the same way here in Kentucky. They hear that a little bit of snow's coming and the stores and all that are packed. They're just scrounging everything like they're going to be snowed in for months.
Yep. So that's a giant threat. It really is. Anyway, we didn't finish the slideshow. There's 4 or 5 more slides, but I'm going to attach it to the class page under week 1. So when you have time, peruse it at your leisure. Make sure you do the reading before you complete the knowledge checks. And since these chapters are so long, I suggest reading a little bit every night. Don't wait till the last minute, because reading is going to get you prepared to participate more in the next live session. And it's also going to help you with your knowledge checks. But I know I was reading the chapters just to kind of brush up on what they want us to talk about. And there's like 60 pages of reading each week. So read for like 30 or 40 minutes a night and space it out. That way you're not all stressed about it. But anyway, I hope that you guys are, this kind of got you thinking about your business or your future business plans. And, that you're enjoying our discussion. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, you just have a knowledge check this week, and we will see you again next Thursday. Does anybody have anything to say before I leave?
Will you post the extra credit up so we could see it? I know it's on your side and hidden from us, but can you show so we could see it and start working on it now?
I will. I have to ask the administration one question first. I want to ask them if it's hidden for any particular reason. It might be hidden because they don't offer extra credit in this class. But I filled it out because the banner is there and the banner says extra credit. So I'm assuming that there's an extra credit option which I think there should be, but I just want to know if it was hidden for a particular reason. Maybe they don't want you working on it right now. Maybe they want you to wait a little while and get into the class. But I thought I would describe it to you so that you can start working on it. And I can post more information about business plans too, which we're going to talk about in week 3, I think. But that, yeah, I'll do that. I'll make it visible as long as I'm allowed to.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to say goodbye for the day, and I will see you next Thursday at 9 a.m. Central. And let me know if you guys need help in the meantime. Thanks for
And I'll
coming,
see you
everyone.
Wednesday.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.